Edgar Cayce once said that animals, particularly dogs, would play a greater spiritual role in human lives, a claim dismissed for years. But today, science and countless personal stories are proving him right. Whether it's a dog detecting cancer before symptoms appear or sensing a tragedy before it unfolds, these abilities hint at something far beyond science's current understanding. What did Cayce truly see, and how does it affect how we view our loyal companions? Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, is one of the most enigmatic figures of the 20th century. For over 4 decades, this humble, soft-spoken man from Kentucky astounded people with what he claimed were trance readings that offered glimpses into the unseen. In these states, Cayce, eyes closed, body relaxed, would speak as though his consciousness were elsewhere. His readings covered an astonishing range of topics: physical healing recommendations, moral guidance, and, perhaps most famously, predictions about humanity's future. While his work was often controversial, his startling accuracy in some cases cemented his reputation as more than just a mystic. Public interest grew into a devoted following, and even now, almost 80 years after his death, his impact on spiritual thought remains undeniable. To truly understand Cayce, you have to imagine the setting of one of his readings. Picture a man lying down on a couch, his demeanor utterly calm, as if asleep, hence the nickname. With his eyes gently closed, he spoke in a steady, deliberate manner about things that felt impossibly distant from everyday life. His words often wove together the past, present, and future, describing forces he believed operated on a level beneath human perception. This is where it gets particularly interesting. Among these glimpses into the future, Cayce shared an unexpected prophecy about animals. Out of all the creatures mentioned, he seemed to look at dogs differently. He described them as more than just companions, insisting they were spiritual beings with roles that went far beyond what humanity could comprehend at the time. They were, in his words, connected to the energy fields of humans, a concept that felt far-flung during the early 20th century. What could he have meant by animals, especially dogs, developing a greater spiritual importance? For generations, the idea was considered more poetic than practical. Dogs had always been loyal, intuitive, and deeply attuned to their owners, but Cayce predicted they would rise to a more profound role. At the time these readings were shared, the common perception of animals was vastly different from today. Dogs were beloved, of course, but they were largely seen as loyal workers or charming pets. The thought of animals having a spiritual mission, let alone a way to sense what humans could not, felt outlandish. Yet Cayce insisted that animals were far more attuned to the spiritual vibrations of life than most people realized. It wasn't just intuition, he hinted. Dogs, in particular, had the capacity to perceive layers of existence that humans often overlooked. He believed their connection to humans wasn't accidental, but rather a kind of partnership, one with a significance that people were only beginning to scratch the surface of. What kept people listening to Cayce wasn't just how extraordinary his ideas were, it was how often his words seemed to align with things no one expected. For example, some medical advice given in his readings, which initially puzzled physicians, was later validated by advancements in medical science. There was a pattern to his predictions. He would speak of something that felt speculative at the time, only for new discoveries or first-hand accounts to give them weight long after. His statements about the role of animals in human lives were no exception. In fact, as our understanding of dogs has grown over the years, Cayce's prophecy is beginning to look less like mysticism and more like foresight. Today, we're flooded with stories that seem to reflect his vision about dogs. Owners recount their dogs, alerting them to unseen health issues, cancer, strokes, even subtle changes in emotional well-being. Research has started revealing that dogs are biologically equipped to detect things we cannot, like changes in body chemistry or even shifts in mood and energy. And yet, these abilities aren't just explained through science. they often feel unexplainably personal, almost mystical. A dog alerting its owner to danger isn't merely fulfilling a biological function. It's acting out what Cayce described a role rooted in a deeper spiritual bond. So, why would someone like Cayce predict that animals would take on such a role? It may be because he saw animals not as separate from humans, but as extensions of the same universal energy. In his readings, he often spoke of unity, describing how all living beings shared a connection on a deeper level. This perspective painted dogs as something more than helpers or protectors. They were partners, placed in human lives with purpose. It's a perspective that sharply contrasts with how society treated animals during his time, but resonates strongly with modern thinking. This evolution in how we see dogs is more than a cultural trend, it's far-reaching. Scientists are now examining what Cayce only hinted at: the consciousness of dogs, their ability to sense energies beyond our understanding, and their role in emotional and even spiritual well-being. While science works to pin down the how, people with dogs in their lives already know the feeling firsthand. The connection goes far beyond practicality or affection. It's as if dogs are in sync with something deeper, something humans don't always have the tools to articulate. Cayce's work continues to capture attention because it wasn't merely imaginative. It had a way of lingering with people. Ideas that seemed bizarre in his time are now surprisingly relevant. His readings about dogs and their evolving significance felt outrageous decades ago, but today they're rooted in the everyday experiences many people report with their pets. If his words were a glimpse of what was to come, it raises an intriguing question. Has the shift Cayce envisioned been happening all along, and we're only now beginning to notice? Could dogs really possess abilities that go beyond what science has fully acknowledged? It might sound extraordinary, but real stories of dogs sensing danger, illness, or emotional distress are being shared with increasing frequency. These accounts offer more than just heartwarming tales. They raise fascinating questions about what dogs may truly be capable of and whether Edgar Cayce's prediction about their heightened sensitivity is unfolding today. Consider this. A Labrador named Luna once began persistently sniffing her owner's left arm. Not just curious sniffing, but an obsessive focus every time they were in the same room. Luna's owner, Zhao, thought little of it at first, but the dog's behavior escalated. Luna began barking and pawing at the same spot on Zhao's arm every day for weeks. Finally, concerned by this unusual persistence, Zhao went to a doctor and discovered a small tumor growing inside her arm, undetectable by routine checkups, but unmistakable to Luna's acute senses. Stories like this are not rare. They showcase dogs acting as early detection systems for illness long before medical technology can confirm what they sense. But illness isn't the only thing dogs appear to detect. Their abilities extend to natural disasters and sudden dangers, which they seem to anticipate with an almost supernatural level of accuracy. Researchers studying animal behavior have documented dogs reacting to seismic activity hours, or even days, before an earthquake strikes. Imagine a German shepherd pacing relentlessly before an earthquake, her restlessness dismissed by her family until the tremors begin the following morning. These cases suggest dogs possess heightened sensitivity to environmental shifts, detecting changes in pressure, vibrations, or even electromagnetic signals far beyond what humans can perceive. While science has explored these abilities in some depth, many questions remain unanswered. Nowhere does this sense of mystery grow stronger than in cases of dogs detecting emotional distress or hidden health issues. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, a behavioral veterinarian, has cataloged over 300 cases of what he calls emotional hypersensitivity in dogs. According to Rodriguez, certain dogs respond to emotional changes in their owners even before those feelings are outwardly expressed, which challenges the conventional understanding of empathy. For example, a patient of his described how her typically laid-back dog began shadowing her nonstop one week. Just days later, the woman, unbeknownst to herself, suffered the onset of a depressive episode. It's as if the dog sensed her emotional state, shifting on a level that bypassed ordinary communication. Interestingly, this aligns remarkably well with the role Edgar Cayce described for animals. He believed dogs in particular were attuned to vibrations, energy fields surrounding human beings that most people are unaware of. Cayce's readings suggested that dogs could function as barometers for the spiritual and emotional well-being of their owners, sensing disturbances in these energies and responding accordingly. It may have sounded like a mystical idea when he uttered these predictions decades ago, but cases like the ones Dr. Rodriguez investigated make that concept feel far more plausible. Perhaps an even more intriguing phenomenon? Dogs that not only sense danger or respond to illness but act on it before anyone realizes what's happening. Dr. James Serpell from the University of Pennsylvania has documented over 1,000 cases where dogs saved human lives in ways that defy easy explanation. In one striking example, a dog began barking uncontrollably and scratching at a door moments before a fire broke out in the house. The dog's frantic warnings were the only reason the family noticed the growing flames in time to escape. These acts extend well beyond instinct. They suggest a precognitive ability, an understanding that something is about to happen even without any visible signs. And it doesn't stop there. Researchers at Duke University have been studying how dogs seem capable of detecting patterns in human body chemistry, which allows them to identify not only diseases like cancer, but also conditions like diabetes, seizures, and even certain mental health issues, such as anxiety and depression. They've found that dogs can pick up on chemical changes through smell, but the emotional and energetic connections these animals form with humans seem harder to quantify. Owners often describe it as a bond that feels inexplicably deep, almost as though their dog knows things they can't express in words. So, the question arises, how much of this is biological, and how much touches on something spiritual, as Cayce suggested? It's also worth asking, are these abilities rare, or are we simply now paying closer attention? The number of stories being shared today about dogs acting as warning systems or emotional guardians implies that these traits may exist at a larger scale than once thought. The idea that some dogs might sense their owner's needs on almost every level, from physical health to emotional turbulence, could represent an evolutionary leap for the species as a whole. At the very least, it challenges the boundaries of what science previously deemed possible in terms of animal awareness and cognition. Edgar Cayce spoke of animals, specifically dogs, as having roles tied to the spiritual evolution of humankind. These stories lend a sense of weight to his words. Whether through their unrelenting loyalty or these newfound capabilities that science is finally beginning to explore, dogs seem to be growing into the exact roles Cayce envisioned. They're protectors and emotional mirrors, but perhaps they're also something more, a bridge between the visible world and the unseen. And yet, this sixth sense in dogs is only one piece of the story. Beyond their abilities to detect, warn, or protect lies an even deeper question. What is the nature of the bond we share with them, the one that seems to allow for this extraordinary connection? Could this bond itself hold the key to understanding the next stage of their evolution and ours? What if the bond between humans and dogs runs far deeper than we've ever understood? Anyone who's spent time with a dog knows the connection is more than skin deep. It's emotional, often described as a kind of unconditional love and trust. But what if this connection isn't just emotional? What if it's also energetic, a shared, unseen link that connects humans and dogs at a level we can't fully perceive, but feel instinctively in moments that matter most? Imagine a person sitting quietly in their home, feeling the weight of the world pressing against them after an especially difficult day. Their dog, sensing the change, approaches and lays its head on their lap. No words are spoken, no cues given, yet it's as though the dog understands that something isn't right and offers exactly what's needed, a reassuring presence. Dogs seem to have an almost innate ability to provide comfort, and it's something countless people have experienced. This behavior isn't random. It's so common that researchers are beginning to consider whether dogs might actually perceive shifts in human emotions on a deeper level, perhaps through subtle and subconscious cues in their environment, or maybe even something more profound. What's interesting is how this bond goes both ways. Not only do dogs comfort their owners during times of stress, but they also seem to absorb and reflect their emotions in ways that are striking. Take, for example, a phenomenon some describe as energetic mirroring. This idea suggests that dogs don't just sense their owner's emotional or spiritual state, they respond to it in real time. This could explain why stressed or anxious owners often find that their dogs reflect similar nervous energy, pacing or behaving differently than usual. On the other hand, owners who are calm and grounded may find their dogs becoming more relaxed and content in their presence. The behavior aligns with the belief that dogs act, in some ways, like mirrors for the energy around them. Grief adds another layer of mystery to this connection. Dogs are remarkable emotional companions when people are experiencing loss, but some display signs of grief themselves when an owner is no longer there. These signs can include lethargy, changes in eating habits, or simply sitting by the door or a favorite chair, waiting. Stories like these show that dogs don't just form surface-level attachments to their humans, they create connections that are deeply emotional, almost familial. It's a reminder that the bond isn't only a one-way street. Dogs, it seems, can love and feel loss just as deeply. Perhaps most intriguingly, many dog owners share an eerily common experience. Their dogs somehow seem to know when they're coming home. It's not just a matter of routine or hearing the familiar rattle of keys. In countless instances, people describe their pets sitting by the door in anticipation long before the owner is anywhere near the house. Some suggest this behavior might be intuitive, while others point to the idea of dogs being able to sense human intentions or even thought patterns. Whatever the explanation, the implication is extraordinary. It hints at a connection far beyond what we'd expect from a traditional pet-owner relationship. Edgar Cayce likely wouldn't have been surprised by this. In fact, he saw dogs as playing a vital and spiritual role in the lives of their human companions. To Cayce, dogs weren't just pets, they were guides, guardians, and conduits for emotional and spiritual energy. He described animals, and dogs especially, as beings placed in our lives with purpose. This purpose, he believed, extended beyond their practical roles as protectors or companions. Dogs were here to help us grow on a deeper level, to reflect our inner states back to us in ways that might otherwise go unnoticed. It's an idea that felt groundbreaking in its time but seems more relevant today than ever, especially as people continue to share stories of how their dogs have provided not just companionship, but profound emotional support. Modern science is just beginning to explore these connections. While researchers are hesitant to call it spiritual, many agree there's something unique at work here. Studies on dogs have found that they can sync their heart rates with their owners, react to human facial expressions, and even pick up on hormonal changes in the body. These findings suggest that dogs are incredibly attuned to humans, not just physically but emotionally. It's a remarkable development that blends biology with something that feels almost intangible, a sense of shared energy and understanding. So, why does this connection matter? If it's more than just loyalty, if it's this energetic bond Cayce described, what does that mean for us? It might point to an evolving relationship between humans and animals, where the lines between species blurred just enough for a new kind of partnership to emerge. A relationship of mutual support, understanding, and perhaps even shared spiritual growth. This shift raises big questions. If dogs act as these energetic mirrors, reflecting our internal states, what does this mean for how we approach our interactions with them? It challenges us to become more mindful of the energy we bring into their lives. After all, if your dog mirrors your emotions, they might also inspire you to seek balance and groundedness. Could their role as our energetic anchors help us uncover greater harmony in our own lives? For humans and dogs alike, this kind of connection feels like more than coincidence. It feels like part of a larger, shared journey. Maybe dogs weren't just bred to be companions or working animals. Maybe they were placed in our lives for something deeper, something both science and spirituality are only beginning to uncover. Science is beginning to uncover truths about dogs that Edgar Cayce might have instinctively understood. For years, researchers underestimated the cognitive and emotional capacity of animals, but recent advances in neuroscience and animal behavior studies are shifting that perspective. Dogs, it seems, might possess a level of awareness far beyond what was previously imagined. These findings don't just suggest heightened intelligence, they hint at potential connections between humans and animals that go deeper than biology alone. In pioneering brain imaging studies, scientists have found that when dogs hear their owners' voices, areas of their brains linked to emotions and reward systems light up. This suggests not only recognition but also an emotional understanding of what those voices represent. Researchers have noted that dogs process human speech in ways that are uniquely complex, even picking up on emotional tones embedded in words. It's no wonder, then, that many of us feel our dogs understand us. Science is confirming that they do likely more than we ever gave them credit for. These discoveries are giving us a new framework for understanding canine cognition and challenging the long-held belief that animals operate purely on instinct. But the scientific curiosity doesn't stop at the emotional capabilities of dogs. Increasing focus has been placed on their ability to predict medical emergencies or detect illnesses. Take, for example, the growing list of documented cases where dogs have alerted their owners to undiagnosed conditions like cancer, epileptic seizures, or changes in blood sugar. These aren't just anecdotal reports, either. Researchers are cataloging these abilities in controlled environments. One study highlights how dogs detect subtle changes in body chemistry through scent, often identifying health concerns well before conventional medical tests. What's more fascinating is the consistency of these cases. It's not that these abilities are limited to service dogs or trained animals. Even ordinary pets seem to instinctively pick up on these cues. This leads some scientists to wonder if there's more than biology at play when it comes to this keen perception. The same can be said of dogs' reactions to unseen events and changes in their environment. Stories of dogs anticipating natural disasters, for instance, are well documented. Some dogs act restless or distressed hours before an earthquake occurs, long before any human notices signs of seismic activity. While scientists often attribute this to dogs' heightened sensitivity to environmental vibrations or pressure changes, the behavior occasionally feels as though it borders on precognition. For years, these phenomena were viewed as fringe topics, unworthy of serious academic exploration. But now, with mounting evidence, a shift is happening. Scientists are cautiously studying what once sounded extraordinary, bringing a level of methodological rigor to questions Cayce may have intuitively posed long ago. One of the most striking areas of research has focused on how dogs interpret human intentions and social cues. Experiments reveal that dogs can follow human gestures, such as pointing, and respond to subtle facial expressions, accurately reading emotions like happiness or sadness. While this might not seem unusual on the surface, these findings suggest an advanced level of social understanding. Dogs don't just observe human behavior, they interpret it. This behavior blurs the line between instinct and consciousness, a topic that has sparked intense debate among experts. What are the limits of canine awareness? Are their abilities grounded entirely in their biology, or do they hint at something more, as Cayce suggested when he spoke of animals tapping into unseen energies? This intersection between science and spirituality is where things get especially fascinating. From a purely material perspective, one could argue that these abilities come down to sharpened senses and evolutionary adaptation. Dogs live in a world we barely experience, dominated by smells, sounds, and even shifts in energy that escape human awareness. But there's another perspective gaining traction, one that considers animals as beings that could, in some ways, transcend the physical. Cayce's vision of dogs acting as spiritual partners for humanity fits unusually well alongside today's scientific findings. After all, how do we explain the cases where dogs seem to know what their owners feel or require without any clear biological trigger? Science may not yet have an answer, but it's asking questions it once avoided entirely. What makes this work so important is how it validates experiences that many have dismissed as unscientific for decades. Take the phenomenon of dogs that appear to sense when their owners are on their way home. While behaviorists might chalk this up to patterns or routines, many dog owners describe experiences that feel far too specific to be coincidence. Similarly, accounts of dogs reacting to unseen presences or energies, once considered moments of anthropomorphism, are being reevaluated in light of new discoveries about canine perception. These instances don't just challenge what we know about animals, they push us to rethink how we understand connection, energy, and awareness. It's here we begin to see the real intrigue, how science and spirituality might meet in the middle. Fields like neuroscience are offering concrete data about the incredible ways dogs perceive and interact with the world. But that data doesn't explain everything. Some questions like why dogs seem to reflect our emotional states or why they possess such uncanny timing require a different lens. This dual approach, blending scientific inquiry with open-minded curiosity, reflects the growing understanding that not everything fits neatly into a single paradigm. While no technology or study can fully quantify the emotional and energetic link between dogs and humans, the evidence so far points to something remarkable. Cayce's insights feel less like abstract predictions and more like observations waiting for the tools of modern science to catch up. If we continue asking these bold questions, if we begin seeing dogs not just as companions, but as evolved beings engaged in a shared journey with us, it might change more than how we view them. It could change how we understand reality itself. If dogs are evolving in ways that align with Edgar Cayce's vision, it raises questions not just about their role in our lives, but about how this shift challenges our understanding of consciousness, intelligence, and even reality itself. For centuries, dogs have been our companions, offering loyalty and love, but new evidence suggests they may also be partners in our spiritual evolution. By looking at their abilities and their unique connection to humans, we may uncover deeper truths about animals, ourselves, and the unseen forces that intertwine all life. There's an argument to be made that the connection we've been seeking with something greater, spiritual meaning, emotional resonance, or simply presence, has been right next to us all along, wagging its tail. Cayce described dogs as spiritual guardians, believing their presence held a purpose beyond companionship. He spoke of their ability to sense human energies and emotions, reflecting these back to their owners in ways that could guide personal growth. At first, this might sound symbolic, but modern stories of dogs responding to their owners' emotions, sensing unseen dangers, or offering profound comfort suggest something very real at play. Through their unique bond with humans, dogs challenge us to rethink what it means to be connected, physically, emotionally, and energetically. This evolving relationship forces us to shift our perspective. If dogs serve not just as pets but as energetic mirrors, that pushes the boundaries of how we understand communication and intelligence. It's not just about verbal or physical cues, it's deeper. Dogs are responding to things we can barely articulate: our emotional shifts, our unspoken needs, even the energy we carry when we walk into a room. Their seemingly intuitive abilities might represent a bridge between the tangible and intangible, nudging us toward a broader understanding of interspecies connection. In more spiritual terms, as Cayce suggested, they are not only companions, but partners in our journey toward greater awareness. This connection isn't just about proximity or routine, It seems to be about alignment. Dogs, many claim, adapt not simply to human behaviors but to human energy itself. They pick up on stress before we notice we're feeling it. They react to joy before we fully express it. Their responses are immediate and natural, almost as if they exist in harmony with us on a level that bypasses mental reasoning. Scientists might frame this as sensory perception paired with coevolution, but Cayce's perspective adds a layer of spiritual insight. He believed dogs were placed on Earth not only to support human lives but to evolve alongside us, playing essential roles in periods of transformation, both personal and planetary. Could this transformation reflect something larger? Cayce's broader framework included the idea of a planetary shift, a time when the vibrational energy of Earth itself would elevate, affecting all living beings. He believed animals, particularly dogs, would be key players in this transition, guiding humans through uncertainty with unconditional love and heightened sensitivities. This would mean that the seemingly random anecdotes we hear today, dogs warning their owners of danger, comforting them through grief, or simply being a calming presence, aren't isolated events. Instead, they could be signs of a much wider awakening, not just among humans but across species. Interestingly, modern science and ancient wisdom seem to converge here. While Cayce's explanations lean toward the spiritual, modern research provides evidence for the tangible benefits of canine companionship. Studies show that spending time with dogs can lower stress hormones, decrease blood pressure, and improve overall well-being. Yet these measurable effects don't capture the full depth of what so many dog owners describe: a sense of connection that transcends words or actions, an intuition that feels almost otherworldly. This blend of empirical evidence and emotional resonance aligns closely with Cayce's belief that dogs serve both material and spiritual purposes, bridging the gap between science and something more profound. If we take this a step further, dogs may not only be evolving individually, but as a species, reflecting a larger pattern of spiritual and environmental shifts. Reports of heightened sensitivities and extraordinary abilities aren't limited to specific breeds or regions. Stories of dogs detecting illness, anticipating disasters, or responding to unseen energies are emerging globally. This consistency suggests a shared evolution, one that reflects a kind of synchronization across the canine population. In this sense, dogs' evolving awareness could signal changes far beyond their own species, perhaps tied to broader shifts in how life on Earth is interconnected. What does this mean for humanity? If dogs are partners in our spiritual evolution, as Cayce envisioned, then they're more than companions, they're catalysts. They challenge us to see them not as separate or subordinate beings, but as essential parts of the same system of existence. By recognizing their evolving roles, we not only expand what we know about animals, but also what we know about ourselves. Dogs force us into the present moment, invite us to reflect on our energy, and remind us of the importance of kindness, loyalty, and intuition, all things we often strive for as human ideals. Their ability to act as emotional and spiritual guides reflects an ancient relationship, one that may hold answers to questions about consciousness and existence itself. But here's the bigger realization. This isn't just about dogs. It's about how humans connect with the natural world as a whole. Cayce described animals as being part of a larger cosmic design, existing not in rivalry with humans, but in partnership. If we start to see dogs through that lens, the lines between species begin to blur. They stop being other and start becoming collaborators in a shared journey of growth and understanding. This shift in perspective mirrors the broader awakening Cayce predicted, where humanity begins to grasp its place within a larger, interconnected system. It's an idea that resonates, especially today when people are searching for deeper meaning and connection in a chaotic world. By opening ourselves to the possibility that dogs and perhaps other animals serve a purpose far greater than we've acknowledged, we might unlock a new way of thinking, one that pushes us beyond the limits of logic and into something greater. Through their evolving role, our loyal companions might just be leading us into a future that broadens our understanding of life, consciousness, and our place in the universe. Dogs have been by our side for centuries, but Cayce's prophecy suggests they may be far more than companions. They could be spiritual allies, subtly guiding us through our journey of self-discovery and awareness. Imagine for a moment, every wag of their tail or knowing glance might hint at their deeper purpose, aligning with energies we barely understand. What might change if you began seeing your dog not just as a loving pet, but as a partner in consciousness? The next time your dog gazes at you, ask yourself, what is it they truly see, and what are they trying to show you?